Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Replenish Earth speaker series, where we explore climate action through innovative and exciting speakers. Today marks the third day of London Climate Action Week, where we drive the national and international climate policy response, prioritizing green recovery. We'll be exploring 4 themes: a green, fair, resilient recovery, a roadmap to COP26, sustainable net zero London, and whole society climate mobilization. I'm Tia Kansara, and today we're hosting Daniele Russilillo, the Global COO and Deputy CEO at Planet Holding Limited, London. He's over 15 years of international experience in environmental, energy, and urban regulatory projects, has collaborated in more than 17 publications, among them 4 books. The most recent book was published last year by Springer, called Energy Governance in Europe. He also serves as Senior Associate for the Institute for European Energy and Climate Policy in Amsterdam, and sits on the advisory board of companies involved in sustainable development and innovative real estate projects. Great to have you on Replenish Earth Live, Daniele.
Hello, Tia. It's very, very nice to be here, and I'm very happy to be present in this great London initiative. Actually, our main headquarters is in London. Right now, Planet Holding Ltd is based in London, so it's our place.
Yeah, totally. You're at home. So tell me, tell us a little bit about Planet Smart City, and of course, big thank you to Carmen and Rebecca for putting us all in touch and giving us the opportunity to really dive deep into the work that you're doing. So I've been very impressed, and Carmen's been telling me a lot more about the actual impact that you've been having, but I'd love to hear it from your side. Tell us about Smart City. Yeah.
Thank you, Tia, for giving me this opportunity, and hello to everybody who's following this live. Planet Smart City is a PropTech company, and it can be quite flamboyant definition. At the end of the day, what do? We develop, meaning build, large residential projects for affordable housing. So it's all about placemaking. We create places for people who cannot buy a home on the free market, but they can buy our own because they are set at the right price point for these people. In doing so, though, we don't just build. We're not just a builder, a real estate developer. We have a strong framework of social innovation and digital transformation. So everything Planet does has to do, of course, with brick and mortar, and the same side also with a lot of digital innovation, with a strong people-centric approach. I cannot hear you, Tia.
I think one of the most probably said sentence throughout the whole of COVID has been, "I can't hear you on your mic." I think one of the really interesting aspects of your work is to sort of marry the different forms of the built environment. So not just the fact that you're building something, that you're creating something, that you're developing a community of something, but you're taking it much further. And I think that's something that has been a real eye-opener for me to understand, where do you sit on the broader spectrum, given that we're all at home and trying to figure all of this out together, especially when it comes to sprawling cities, mega cities, putting all of our resources in cities and developing this urban environment, which is not fit for purpose anymore.
Yeah, I'm very happy you asked me this question and making these comments, because probably people need to understand a bit the reality and the impact of what we do. And maybe some numbers can help. Today, almost 1,600,000,000 people are living in inadequate conditions of housing, because they live in overcrowded homes, they live in shanty towns, they live in favelas, they live in places which are totally underserved from the point of view of the basic services for human life. And these people need homes. And these people and our clients, the clients of Planet Smart City, are people who have a job. They send the kids to school. They live a life with dignity, but they cannot afford a home in the free market. So our business plan is quite ambitious. In this moment, our core countries are India and Brazil, soon to be also Colombia, and we started the project also in the United States in January. In total, I have to tell you that if you look at our plan of growth, we have a short pipeline of 6,500 homes to be built in Brazil and 2,000 in India. But if we go a little bit into the future, by 2024, we'll have launched more than 38,000 housing units, all in large residential projects, usually 1,000, 2,000 homes. You can call them districts where people like to live, they like to raise their kids, they find services. We don't just build homes here, we build smart communities. And this is everything that is all about the planet. Of course, in doing so, and this is why maybe I'm here today, we try to create an enabling environment for this kind of placemaking that has to be sustainable from the social, economical, and environmental point of view. That's key.
I think in terms of the social economic point of view, I think it makes sense to create physical spaces that people want to live in. But of course, there is a really big question about what does it mean to live today in a built environment. So could you speak to some of the challenges perhaps that COVID has brought up and how you've met those challenges with solutions in Planet Smart City?
Yeah, look, this pandemic is a huge problem. It took everybody off guard. But at the end of the day, maybe we can talk about this a little bit at the end. We should all try to become a little bit like Taleb wrote in a book 8 years ago, anti-fragile. And this pandemic should teach us about anti-fragility. You know a lot about climate change here, so you know that in the last 20 years, there is a tiny word that has become more and more important, which is resilience. And climatic resiliency has been a hot topic for many years. Now, I mean, starting from this year, we're starting to talk about resilience also from the pandemic point of view. But I want to raise the bar. We don't have just to become resilient. Resilience is something that resists to a shock, okay? Anti-fragile is something that resists to a shock and then gets better, improves out of that shock. And this is what we have to, to think about. We will have more challenges in the future. Probably this pandemic was just a big test. Honestly, probably dramatically we failed as a society, because now in Europe, where we are sitting now, the second wave is proving maybe even more challenging than the first one, and people feel even more unsettled. But there's one thing, just one thing that this pandemic created as a ripple that can be seen positive and maybe used to create that feeling of anti-fragility that I was talking about, which is digitalization. People are getting news to understand that there is another way to access services, to connect with people. And I'm not just talking about social networks and entertainments and cats on Facebook. I'm talking about real life through digital media. And this is something we need to use. In Turin, the city I'm talking from now, because in these weeks I'm sitting at the competence center of the group based in Turin, where we have more than 80, soon to be 200 engineers, architects, and sociologists who think every day how to bring innovation in the developments we do. We have a lot of POC for our digital platform, proof of concept. And our Planet app, this is the front end of our digital platform, gets used a lot also in the city of Turin. There are some neighborhoods that are using it a lot. During COVID time, our users grew 30% because we put in place some activities where young people wanted to help all the guys to, to shop, to get the veggies, and to live a life which was already difficult, but made a little bit simpler if you create what I called before, a smart community. People are using the app more. I'm just telling you about our point of view. They're asking us to put more services into the app to access sanitary services or to increase the possibility to do stuff sitting at home. There's also another level, which is very important. People are realizing that our homes are not really fit to host an intense activity of home working. So in some of our proof of concepts in Italy, like for instance, this neighborhood near Milan, 1,500 homes, we have created spaces where people could smart work, common areas that people could book through the Planet app and go to work in, and they will love it. Because maybe they don't have a strong connection at home, because maybe at home they don't have all the space they need. The idea of the placemaking of Planet Smart City is that spaces are less important than services. I can live in a tiny home, but I want to choose to live there if I find the services that I need, which of course are transportation, school for kids and stuff. But today, because of these pandemics, we understand that also another level of services are needed: connectivity, the ability to work from home. So we are trying to take the best out of this very difficult situation and implement it into our developments. Lots of people have said lots of stuff about the potential impact of the pandemics. Some people thought that we need all big homes. Some architects said that we should move all in the countryside and stuff. But we need to stay on the trend of urbanization. It won't change because of COVID. We need to find resilient, and I prefer anti-fragile solutions in the current trend.
I think what's fascinating is, as a very dear friend of mine said, we can call any family member for free and even talk to them on a video chat anywhere in the world, no big deal. We can push a button on our phones and food shows up at our door, no big deal. Many of us can work from home and hold meetings, be productive, get our jobs done, no big deal. We can text and email and call our doctors who can see us, hear us, even get our heart rate from our watches if need be, right? Without us needing to go to the actual clinic. Also no big deal. We can order and deliver the medication to come home. If we get bored, we can play on games online, connect with loved ones, binge watch like endless movies and Netflix and VR world interactions. We can see and learn in real time what's going on in other countries. I mean, the number of incredible projects lining up all of the data so that we can actually see and compare it in and within the city environments is no big deal today. We can be notified immediately when something changes through the apps, track and trace apps, for example. We've got, even though all of the schools are closing, can you imagine what life could have been like, 20 years ago when we didn't have these sorts of services that are digital? So I think what you're saying is incredible. It's spot on, because these are the challenges that we have as of today to give us the opportunity to digitally connect in ways we've never known it before. So, when maybe 15, 20 years ago, when we were talking about smart cities and we were introducing this concept of smart, we were talking about how the digital connection, how the physical connection met the digital connection that would allow for the social connection, the physical aspects of the city being almost uploaded online, and the ability for us to create things such as the Internet of Things or the devices that have, incredible amounts of real-time information, like your smart meters, that instead of somebody, that you can imagine, like, many years ago, uploading your information individually or calling somebody to give them the meter reading, and now it's sort of done on an automatic level. So the whole sort of layer of digitization in the city or in our homes, our lives, our lifestyles, has really given us a layer of behavior that wasn't there before. In comes 2007 smartphone. All of a sudden, our lives are completely, toggled around this like glass screen, right? It's a fascinating relationship that we're creating with each other and through this medium. And I think, here are the times where it's apparently, in that spectrum, dangerous to go outside because you may get COVID because it's aerosol. And, we've got the elderly generation that are said to be the most vulnerable, and shouldn't go outside and should shield. And that's an incredibly sad and lonely situation to be in. So how can the digital sphere sort of like aid? So when you say that 30% of the interactions on your app, for example, have gone up to give rise to residents who are taking initiative using your digital devices, can you give us some examples and or stories of how that's happened and what has come of it?
Well, basically, in Turin, where we have our competence center, there were two main POCs that were created. One POC was related to the ability of saving excess of food for people who were in need. In the first wave, I don't know if I can say the same things in the second wave, because now the level of unsettlement is really worrying. Let me give you a political joke. In the first wave, everybody was worried to get ill. In the second wave, everybody is worried to get poor. So the first wave was based on a reaction that was different. People felt this strong solidarity movement that was necessary at the grassroots of the community. So basically, they used our app. We created a feature to share food in excess for people who had problems at that time, and it was amazing. And it was amazing, and it's still going on. And I think it's one of the best way where solidarity, getting together for good, can really be mediated successfully by a digital platform. I have to tell you, in the last, you said it beautifully. I mean, the first book about smart cities I read in 1992 was the first time in which the word smart was close to the word city. It was a book by Professor Gibson, was called Technopolis. A lot of years ago.
Yeah.
What's happened? What's happened here in all these years? 1992, what's happened? For more than 20 years, I think the narration and the narrative of smart cities was too technocentric.
Correct.
And it's important for me. When Planet Smart City talks about smart solutions, smart cities, we don't talk about flying cars. We talk about places where people can have a better life for them and their kids on 4 macro areas that are not only technological, of course, architecture and spaces, of course, technology, but let me tell you, also environment and social innovation. And now I have to say, wind is moving because people are starting to talk about smart cities also with a little bit of more of a heart in the conversation, a bit more people centric. Because you're a professional, you're an academic. For many years, we've been talking about the digitalization layer in the framework of the smart city, how to digitalize the infrastructure. Yeah, it's all fine. But at the end of the day, people are the real movers of a city. And people is the target the Smart City has, and we should all have to improve the level of happiness in our community. So when people in Turin use our app because they want to share food or because they want to organize activities to help the elderly, this has happened, to buy the groceries, to do little things, to go and collect drugs, they just do it because it's right to do it. They are making an intelligent choice. They're making it right. The fact they're using our app is because digital transformation is very efficient. And this is what we need to take home from this, from this crazy pandemic that we're living in. And honestly, we're also applying the same things to our project. There's an interesting anecdote in India. We are about to develop 2,000 homes in the city of Pune with a brilliant partner of ours called Untitled Developers. And in Pune, there is a large township called Life Republic. During the pandemic and strong lockdown, talking about March, May, people, of course, needed to buy their veggies. Being a large, town, once a week there was a farmer, many farmers, who were going from the rural areas to the city of Pune to sell their things. The people in the district didn't know where they were coming. And so people came to us and say, you are about to smartize our township because Planet is going to build homes and is going to take his social innovation and digital transformation framework in this township. Why don't we create a thing so that on the app I can see when these farmers are coming to sell? Because otherwise I have to go down, walk for 2 kilometers, go on the gate of the township, read on a piece of paper when the farmers are coming, and it's not good. We did it, and people love it. So these are simple examples, but to change people's lives, you don't have to do rocket science. You need to listen to the needs, and luckily we can do that as Planet Smart City, make investments in platforms and smart solutions that provide, a new way of living for the people. It's not rocket science. It takes dedication, though.
I think the challenge is, how do you give these perspectives to a wider audience so that they're ready and they can take up these opportunities. One thing is to let them know that they're there, but how do you really reach them? Letting people know that these are the opportunities available to them as residents, let's say. How do they really sort of take initiative and know? Because I think in society we have this almost letting go of the ownership of something to the more governance-led, top-down approaches for centralized decision making. And of course, if we are to shift to a more decentralized version of managing and manifesting our cities and our lives and citizenry, then power also must shift to decision making, and choices must shift to those people to whom that decentralized city is actually going to. So how do you make that shift of ownership and taking initiative towards the residents, rather than it being we're telling you to do this, them taking it up themselves?
Yeah, this is a very important question, Tia, and let me tell you something straight away. Technology, or if you want a digital transformation, is not enough. We need the human touch. When we develop large residential projects, we sell the homes to people, communities start to get created. We don't just give our love to people. That would be a failure. One of the most important activities of Planet Smart City in our smart communities is what we call smart community managers. People who live in the district, and they are paid in the business plan of Planet Smart City, and they activate ground up the community through also the digital transformation created with the app and the digital platform. But the human touch is fundamental. In Brazil, for instance, we have all these practices. We have a framework. We call it a community startup. We also collaborate in Europe with awesome bodies like the Foundation for Social Housing based in Milan. And from this kind of collaboration, we created our own style, which is using people to mediate these kind of needs. Our smart community managers listen to people, understand their needs. They know everything about the desires and wants of these people, and activates events, cultural events, that take people hand by hand in this path of getting a bit digitalized. And moreover, they try to empower the people. How? In Brazil, in our first project, Laguna Smart City close to Fortaleza, we have our community there, and it's beautiful. We're changing people's lives. But it's not because of planet, because of people willing to change their lives. Our community managers over there have created committees for everything. But not with the community managers, with the people. Infrastructure committees, events committee, cultural committees, and people get self-organized to solve potential problems, conflicts, to find opportunities. And this kind of animation at the global level, that of course Planet supports with community managers. We created a lot of free spaces and common spaces like football pitches, sport areas, innovation hubs. In every single district we built here, we built an awesome building that basically hosts, is the heart of the social innovation framework of the community. We provide free smart working places, library for kids, cinema for kids, all in one place. In Brazil, 1.5 years ago, there was a girl, she was 12, Samira, It's a nice story. She saw this fantastic building in our development close to Fortaleza, and she thought it was for rich people. So she went home and she asked the parents, "Can I go inside?" And the parents said, "No, no, no, no. Surely they will ask you to pay for the ticket." Then this girl, very smart, managed to get in without telling his mom and dad. And she discovered an entire world made of quality, super execution, where she could find books, cinemas, computers, and it was all for free for her. Living in a favela and having that makes you be able to do something everybody needs if we want to make this planet a better place. Dream. She never dreamt before. She didn't know what to dream. Then she got in our innovation lab. Everything was free, including an English course. She participated in the English course. She finished it. And now she's becoming one of our young testimonials because she loved it. And she came back to her mom and dad and said, "Look, this development is for affordable housing. It's for people like us. There's no trick." If Tia, you ask me which is our trick, I will tell you the first thing is the scale. This project that we launch have a very, very good internal rate of return. Point is, if you do it right, you can also provide people with services and that kind of animation in the community. So when you ask me how to do it, you need a human touch. You need the app in itself, digital transformation doesn't teach a lot. You need community managers that from the grassroots to the community take people hand by hand in this new path. In Milan, in one of our proof of concepts, I told you before, it's a district with 1,500 homes. It was built in the 60s, and the developer asked us to smartize it. We have one user who is 100 years old. Of course, she was taught to use the app, but there's no limit to human mind when people understand they can create connections. Connection is the base for everything. The first way to go out from a situation of poverty is connection, because it will ask people how to do things. It will ask people for a job. It will ask people for counseling or suggestion how to make some money. If you don't even have the connection, all those things are totally away from your ability to access it. So this is what we do it, and this is what I think it's important to tell our people. You know, when you ask me, basically, how we give this kind of news at large, I think we don't have to be too much generic. I think we need to understand whom we talk to. If I'm talking to investors, I would tell them, if we want to create a sustainable future, we should start to understand what is generally called multi-stakeholder capitalism, ESG framework. Investors, be careful to ESG frameworks. Invest in companies who have it, who walk their talks. I mean, ESG investment last year, Tia totaled more or less $20 billion in investments. The year before, 2019, it was 5. So in 1 year, it doubled twice. And if you look at some recent reports from Morgan Stanley, and remember, they said that today, 85% of investors are interested in ESG frameworks. And the year before, no, maybe a little bit more, let's say 2015, it was 70%. So there's a trend. The way people are investing is changing. Big investors are changing their attitude. But what I want to say from this privileged stage you've given me is to tell all the investors who are listening to us that we can accelerate this trend, and that will be the first thing. The second community I would like to engage from this little screen together is educational community. Really, we need empowerment for the girls and for the children in general on STEM programs. Climate change, sustainability, it's about numbers and science. STEM has never been this important. Science, technology, engineering, math. Let's give our little kids the possibility to understand really that this thing is way, way more powerful than the total computational power that sent mankind to the moon. And now we cannot only use it for little silly entertainment, which I'm not saying is bad. I'm just saying, let's make our kids understand the real possibilities that we have in our hands today. I'll tell you something. In our first development in Brazil, was Varsity Laguna. I'm speaking about that because it's the first one with our community already living there. We are offering an empowerment program to women in order to get shops, to create shops in the neighborhood. So you let them create the shops, they don't pay the rent to us, we try to understand what they need. And guess what? We are teaching them Excel and simple shopkeeping accountability. It's basic. But guess what? After a little time, these shopkeepers are not only making money, but they're happy to pay the rent to us because they feel empowered. They feel that their business is working, so they can pay us, they can pay the taxes, and guess what? When a family that sells groceries, or a girl in Laguna, she's called Berenice, she's awesome, she's got an hairdressing shop. She's able to pay taxes and to make a good business. Guess what? She's compliant to access credit. And then she can put herself in a mindset that is totally different from what she was before. Maybe teaching Excel and accountability is not really going full-fledged STEM program, I know. But let's start and let's do it with our kids. So the educational community, in my opinion, should think really about the future. The third thing is our communities at large, citizens. What can we tell people to do? Of course, we cannot have community managers everywhere. We can't have the same solutions that Planet Smart City proposed because we cannot be all over the world. But there is something that I'm proposing people to do. Ask your neighbors how it is. Don't just complain if the dog barks too much. Ask people how they are. Ask people if they need something. Let's improve the connection. Once I improve the connection on the local level, everything I can do later, improve the waste collection in the building, improve activities for the kids, especially in this lockdown situation, they become more natural because connection is being created. The real estate in Planet Smart City View, it's all about connection. And then once you do that, you start to understand better why maybe you should use renewable energy if you can. Maybe you should see a little bit what are your consumptions and stuff like that. But it's tiring for people to understand if they're consuming too much or too less on the energy bills. People don't get kilowatt hours. People get euros or dollars. So how do you trigger that desire to make the difference? I think the first way to do it is connection.
I remember this project that we did with the Abu Dhabi Water and Electricity Authority in 2010 or so. We were collecting information about energy use in buildings, and of course, during these periods of increased temperature during the summer months, we're looking at the air conditioning capacity going to absolute maximum, and that's where we would be organizing, a lot of the designs of these buildings, which would be catering particularly for those 3 or 4 months of extreme temperatures. And of course, during those times, you can experience blackouts, or you can experience a variety of different responses from the climate to energy use, like a direct correlation. One of the aims was to try and reduce, through behavioral campaigns, the kind of relationship that people had with energy. And so with the Regulation and Supervision Bureau that was at the time directed by a gentleman called Nick from the UK, he created this incredible project called PowerWise and WaterWise. And I remember this because with the Abu Dhabi Commercial Bank's property division, there was an incredible gentleman that was running the maintenance side of the buildings that the Abu Dhabi Commercial Bank owned. And the the work that they did was really to uncover the relationship that people had with electricity. And as you said, people don't think in terms of kilowatt hours, they think in terms of the amount of money that they might be spending on something. So it was really fascinating when on the actual bills, we started to put the exact amount of subsidy that was being provided by, to people, and on those bills to be showing whether in comparison to the rest of the residents in the area, they were comparatively higher or comparatively lower. And what we found, if they were comparatively higher, we made it clear by putting, the information in red that they were higher than the regular consumption of electricity. And if they were lower, they were in green. And so all of the red bills showed very quickly to the residents that there is a relationship between my usage and the amount of subsidy that is being provided to me. This also had consequences on the environment. This also has consequences, etc. So all of that ripple effect was made even more clear. And I feel that even with our work at Replenish Earth, we have, one of our team members, Chirag, is doing some research on the full visual on consumption behavior. So one of the things that we're seeing is that, much of the relationship that starts and finishes, that relationship is very much hidden. So where you would purchase something and it would leave your hand, so where it enters your hand and leaves your hand, is what people are made comfortable with. It's like, you purchase it from here, don't you worry about where it came from. And then you let go of it in, say, a trash can over here, and also don't worry about what happens to it at the end. So there is a space that is visible, and there is the absolute unknown of the rest of it. And what we're finding is this entire loop and circle is becoming more incredibly important for people who want to understand, where does my product come from? What's the consequence of that? Where does it go, and what's the consequence of that? So there is this entire sort of map and picture. And I think you rightly said that it is at the human level. It's not about higher or lower. It is at the human level that we can connect with people. The rest of it can almost fit into place, of whether we're going to have energy efficiency strategies, or whether we're going to make sure that, we have recyclable dustbins that are put in. So it's a really fascinating challenge that we have at the moment in integrating our research, our practical knowledge on the data that we're monitoring and how people are using buildings or cities and what they need, but also in feeding that back into decision making. So, one of the projects that we did was post-occupancy evaluation of about 20 or so buildings. And what we found was that after at least minimum of 6 months into the actual occupancy of a building, this is work pioneered by Adrian Lehman and Bill Bordas in London by the Usable Buildings Trust. And one of the methodologies that they have is to actually go back to the residents and ask them, what's the building doing for you? What's the experience for you in terms of well-being, health, comfort, productivity? And often we don't look at, is this a productive building? You might look at the actual designs of the building and say, well, this is a LEED Platinum building, it's very efficient. But the moment that you put a human inside there, it's not designed for the human to change their minds and open the windows and close the doors and whatever else they want to do inside the building. So there's very much that sort of what a building should do at design and what actually happens in occupancy. And so this relationship between the design and occupancy and post-occupancy use of that is something that requires this feedback into the design stages of future projects as well.
I totally agree. And I have to tell you that, what you mentioned before about comparing the consumption between households, we do it through our app. And the literature says that nobody wants to be the silly one in the district. So just comparing makes you willing to change your behavior. And we're talking about 3 to 5% reduction in primary energy without investment, just comparing what you're doing against your neighbors. And if you are the silly one spending more, you automatically change your behavior because you don't want to be in the bad group people first. Second, again, you said it very right. It depends on the cognitive aspects of the relationship between mankind and the resource. People don't think in kilowatt hours. They can see the euros or the dollars on the bill. That is wrong. only one commercial contract that deals with the energy, where everybody is really well prepared, was when you buy the petrol for your car. This is amazing. Everybody on the street know how much 1 liter or 1 gallon of petrol costs, and everybody knows how much they're consuming and how much miles they can do. Because when you pay for petrol and when you actually put the petrol in your car, is exactly the same moment. It's only 2 minutes away from the actual act of filling your car and paying. This happens for the layman only when you put petrol in your car. All our other energy uses don't have this kind of coincidence. So from the cognitive point of view, it's complicated. Digital application, digital transformation technique, our platform is basically meant to create a sense of awareness. But we don't have to create a generation of nerds and geeks. We need to let people understand what they're doing and what is happening to the environment at large. We don't need to transform everybody into engineers. This is why user experience, user interfaces, very good digital application, maybe matched with some gamification frameworks, can really do wonders. And this is what Planet Smart City is trying to do on our roadmap for digital transformation.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I find it really incredible, especially with your innovation hubs, because just as much as a physical space can be affordable to live in, is a physical space can be a place of dreaming and imagination and creativity. And for me, when anybody asks me, so what does success look like for you, or where do you want to go? Like, where do you want to be in 5 years time or 10 years time, or do you want to get rich and do you want to be a trillionaire and whatever else? For me, it's 100% creative. I just want to be 100% at my full potential of creativity. I find that so purposeful because there's so much that I want to be able to share. And if I'm living in a place that encourages me to do even more of the tasks that I want to, understand how I can be more creative, I feel that those are the sort of innovation hubs, just like, young children in villages across the world that find solutions through TED Talks and get inspired to do something locally, but with the resources that they have locally, and light up entire villages of electricity that are made from fuel cells that they made at home using biodegradable compost, and then using the methane from that to sort of empower the entire fuel cell system. So I think that there are brilliant solutions out there. It's not that the technology doesn't exist. It's almost as if there's a spark that's missing. And, I'd love to hear a little bit more about, what happens in these innovation hubs that you've been creating, and how might we become more innovative where we live as well? What has the innovation hub taught you, and how can we also bridge that with the way that we're living?
Yeah, thank you for this question. First of all, let me tell you something. The idea of the Innovation Hub, these ideas of getting together, these new trends for future living are very present in Europe. We are just trying to take the best of what's being created in our lands here to take to places with potentially, with less opportunity, but potentially a lot more opportunities, just because the volumes of people involved are a lot bigger. So, as I said before, what we learned is that people love connecting. They love to try to express their feelings and their needs in a trusted network. And the human touch of a physical place, okay, now it's complicated, but COVID won't be with us forever, is absolutely astonishing. It can provide incredible results. The ability to give people spaces, like I said before, like library for kids, cinemas, smart working areas, very large areas where people can run family events. Because if you are an affordable housing segment household here, you cannot afford the 200 square meters home, 2,000 square foot homes. So we provide spaces for them to book on our app free, because when they have a birthday of the kids, when they want to run an association related to their interest, they go into the innovation app and they do it. And it's incredible to understand how the feeling of your home gets enlarged. You don't need 2,000 square feet home in order to run those kind of things. You can use shared resources. You know, in the Western world, we were tricked a little bit. We thought the sharing economy was only car lifts and electric scooters. No, actually, the first movements related to the sharing economy were related to something else rather than putting dormant assets to value. Okay, which is what very famous companies do with houses or with cars. Sharing economy means more. In our innovation hub, in all the innovation hub we do for our developments, there is one room which is, let's say, I don't know, 15, 20 square meters that we fill up with do-it-yourself tools. And this is amazing. Also in Milan, an affordable segment households doesn't have to buy 300 pounds drill they use only once a year. We fill up the room with lots of tools. It can be a lawnmower, a power drill. It can be a very posh basketball. It can be something else that you can imagine for the life of the community. And people book it through the app, get it, use it, and put it back. And so far in our experiences, nothing has got stolen, ruined, or whatever. Because when you give opportunities to people, people become the owner of a situation, and they will be the first one to protect it. It's amazing. It's amazing. I mean, Elinor Ostrom, the Nobel Prize of Economics, has taught us a lot about common goods. And when you go and read books, everything seems to be clear. Then in real life, you need dedication to make things happen. And with our little things, with our POC, with our innovation hub, I can tell you she was right. Her framework of ownership at the local level in a multi-stakeholder environment, guess what? Works. So when you tell me, how can we do things for our own? Surely we need connection with people around us. We need the power of the association. Even at the building level, we need to understand what are the places in which we can speak freely about our needs and trying to find an answer. I mean, in the first project we made in Fortaleza, all the committees I talked to you about are very active. Now there's a grassroots movement of solution-based actions. People don't just complain, people get together to find solutions. This is the kind of thing that I was mentioning before when I told you, you know, at the local level, let's ask our neighbor how he is sometimes, not just complain. Because first thing we need to connect, we need to look exactly what's happening around us. We need to understand better in our building, in our condo, what's happening. We don't have to live just a life of disconnection. The pandemic has taught us that being lonely can be really bad, definitely bad, because we gave lots of things for granted before. It was easy to come and go and stuff like that. Now I think people are understanding that there's a rich way of having, you know, running your life with connections and going around and then going to concerts, meeting people that can really treat a little bit better. It has to be a sacred thing. It has to be something we look after. So it's a very simple message. We could talk for hours, but when you're asking me what we can do, what we have learned from our innovation hub is letting people connect with each other. That's the real smashing solution to a very big number of problems. You cannot foresee the power that can be born from simple and pure connection.
There's a beautiful balance between the developer, right? Like those that are creating the space and those that are using the space, or the resident. And I think that this balance between the two are the invitation to a conversation that has yet to be had in many circles. And I think you're leading the way in that conversation and that relationship that is created between, say, an architect and, you know, the grandmother that's living in location in situ. I think that that bridge between how a place is designed and how an architect even designs the way that you behave in a physical space is determined very much by the physical form, right? The form and how you enter this space and how you interact with it is your relationship. That, if, for example, you go into a building and there's only a left turn, if you're an architect, you've designed that behavior that somebody goes left only, looks up or looks down or looks right, left, or, like staircases that pull on the eyes, so that as you sort of like look up, you're sort of prospecting or retrospecting, or there's a real interesting relationship between physical form and emotions and how we feel, to the way that I'm sure a lot of physical spaces have been created to develop space for creativity rather than depletion. So much material is used for quick quid pro quo, copy and paste architecture and design, where actually design has a role to play in giving people aspiration and healing and education in ways that we never thought were possible before. When you're going to school and learning about, say, agriculture and food and growing food and composting and gardens and urban environments that are pro growing and developing this relationship with nature, going to school to do that, when you can actually, in the actual building that you're living in, or the balconies that you've got, the shared gardens that you have, the shared spaces that you have, be actually integrating that learning into the physical space. So there is this, as you see it, learning city, right? The city becomes the school classroom, because that's exactly where you're learning to apply these teachings.
Exactly. And then I'll tell you another thing that is happening in one of our POCs, urban gardens, shared urban gardens, like squares of soil that you can put also in the middle of the city, in a district, and everybody thinks it's something to do with the environment because you grow, grocery at the local level and stuff like that. We've even, we have a version of Planet Smart City urban garden, which is, enriched by IoT and stuff like that. By the end of the day, the most important impact of that thing here that doesn't have anything to do with the environment. You know why? Urban garden has proved for us the best way to create intergenerational connection between the kids and the old people. This is incredible. When you see it, you start to think, especially people of mine in your generation, even if you're a lot younger than mine, urban gardens are a way to produce locally, right? And all that kind of stream of thoughts. In our experience, what people value most is that you can see very little kids, toddlers, being taught by old people what they're actually looking at, how to grow a plant, what's the difference between a potato and a tomato. And that kind of thing is what I meant before. When you put people together, you don't know the outcome. Usually it's beautiful. So something that everybody can think it's an environmental solution is actually a social innovation one. We've lost the intergenerational relationship, and it's incredible. I mean, I could talk for hours with lots of passion.
Yeah, this is totally.
When you create connections and you really think about, like in that case, you really think about environment. You want to teach people how beautiful it is to have a connection with a plant, with a vegetable that grows because you care. Then you have an effect which is totally social. It's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, here we are designing homes for the elderly or schools for the children, and that for this age group and that for this age group, and it's as if what we've in many aspects the physical form of, or physical sort of urban environment is manifesting certain social behaviors that are now helping us realize in 1 or 2 generations that that's not what we want. We want to have much more integrated, multi-age, multi-generational wisdom that is taught in context of the physical space that children are in, or adults are in, or the elderly are in. And it's that cycle, I think, that brings in the circularity of life, living, and, you know, preparation for the afterlife. There is this sort of circle of experience and wisdom that can, you know, naturally be passed on and passed through, where, you know, preempting a lot of, I think, the challenging relationships that we have because of our growing into a different generation can actually be readied. People can be, you know, people can be understood better because we give them the opportunity to be heard and seen, and we invite them into these places to live together. You know, so I'm a massive proponent of your work in building that sort of intergenerationality, if that's a word, into the actual mix, because you're giving people the opportunity to appreciate and understand and pass on experience rather than just you know, a text in a book.
Thank you so much. Spot on.
Yeah. I'm, you know, I'm keen to hear from you. We've got a couple of minutes still. Where are you going? So what are your plans? What in the next, you know, given that we're in quite uncertain times, so but what are you going to be working on? And perhaps there's an ask that you'd like to share with the audience as well, like something that you're working on right now that you're interested in people finding out about you, or ways that people can help you further the work that you're doing.
Sure. First of all, you can easily reach me through my social media. Maybe they can be seen in all the social media bars that we're going to create. That's it. That's my handle, both on Twitter and on Instagram. Of course, the company website is www.planetsmartcity.com. Here it is, and it's easy to reach me. I answer to everybody. Just be patient if I don't super straight away. I'm very busy, but I do, because we love to talk to people. Where are we going, Tia? This is an incredible news. I have to tell you that, especially talking from Europe, we need to understand the world is changing. I have a kid 4 years old. When he will be my age, the world probably will be a different place. If the world was a table, like some people think it is, instead of a sphere, it would really lean towards Asia and Africa. So us Europeans have to understand that we need to understand that new people are coming. I mean, some African countries will triple their population before the year end, and in Asia, incredible thing will happen. India at the end of the century will be will have a larger population than China. Lots of things are going to happen. So the future of planets is indeed in Asia. Now we're in India, but we're looking at interesting countries like Vietnam, Thailand, Indonesia. And of course, Africa, it's an amazing place for us. I've been working in Africa for some time. I love that continent. I would love to get there. It's not an easy place. We know there are some things that needs to be understood at a local level. And then saying Africa doesn't mean anything with all those countries and cultures. I actually don't like to say Africa, the African continent, like Europe. But we are having first interaction, we are trying to understand. So long-term planet will have to deal with this part of the world, which will have an incredible increase in education in young people who are willing to make a difference. And so we are trying to get ready to be there. On something that we are working now, I have to tell you that we are very keen in investing also quite a good amount of money in our digital transformation roadmap, because we really believe that if you do it right, the digital platform can do a lot for the people in our developments. And things like gamification, roadmaps, trying to understand how to create a marketplace for people to provide our residents with services and product with a big discount are one of the things that is keeping us busy now. And I really hope that maybe next time we talk, there will be other countries as our core countries. We want to expand. We have an ambitious plan, but at the same time, we want to remain humble and do things right. Execution, proper execution, Tia, is the best way to respect the dignity of the people who are going to live in our province.
Well said. Beautiful sentence. On that note, Danny, thank you so much for joining the Replenish Earth Live.
Thank you, Tia. We'll be in touch, for sure.
Yeah, Totally. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. We're, starting to realize that, climate action can be governmental or can be through cities and can be through developers and companies, but also that climate action is a personal action. How are you taking climate action personally? Let us know. Tell us what your actions are. Share, whatever mini projects, little steps that you're taking with us on our social media. And of course, if you get the chance to, please take the Replenish challenge, which is called Rise to Replenish. Every day we've got different things that we're sharing on social media. Our team has been working extremely hard to put a variety of different activities together. Today's activity is digital detox, because as we've heard also from Danny, that we don't think in terms of kilowatts, but that has a consequence on the environment, whatever it is that we're spending our money on, in terms of energy use, can have a positive impact if we also take that time away from our digital devices and give ourselves the opportunity to pledge to reduce the dependency on these devices that naturally consume energy. So please join and engage with our social media handles to know more and win prizes. You never know what you're going to have next. We've got workshops, we've got a VIP eco party, we've got books that we're sharing, one-on-one coaching sessions. So please do get in touch with us. Thank you all very much for your time, and see you tomorrow.